Hi, Bo. Namaste. My name is Janapati Das, and I'm going to adjust the camera just a touch. We are here today to do another Krishna book reading. Thank you very much. Feel free to join in with the kirtan, or hearing and chanting of Krishna's holy names, which is a prime benediction. It is the highest form of self-realization meditation in this day and age. So feel free to join along. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhujale Srimati Sita Swarupananda Paramahamsa Iti Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Srimati Sita Swarupananda right, Bill. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, continuing in our story, Krishna and Balaram and all the coward men and the coward boys had all arrived in Mathura, and had had some very interesting adventures, different devotees, some demons, an elephant named Kuvalayapita that they killed and entered into the wrestling arena for the great wrestling match that we're going to get into right now. And all the people in Mathura were very excited to see Krishna. They've been hearing about Krishna and Balaram and the stories about Krishna and Balaram in Vrindavan and their wonderful feats of heroism. And of course, the ladies of the Mathura were very, very happy to see Krishna, and it said that they took Krishna into their heart and embraced him and was happy, which is a true lesson of all living entities. We take Krishna into our heart and embrace them. We can feel the peace, we can feel the happiness and satisfaction that we are always anxious for. The citizens of Mathura city who saw Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, became very pleased and began to look on his face with insatiable glances, as if they were drinking the nectar of heaven. Seeing Krishna gave them so much pleasure that it appeared that they were not only drinking the nectar of seeing his face, but were smelling the aroma and licking up the taste of his body, and were embracing him and Balaram with their arms. They began to talk among themselves about the two transcendental brothers. For a long time they had heard of the beauty and activities of Krishna and Balaram, but now they were personally seeing them face to face. They thought that Krishna and Balaram were two plenary incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan, who had appeared in Vrindavan. The citizens of Mathura began to recite Krishna's pastimes, his birth as the son of Vasudeva, his being taken into the care of Nanda Maharaj and his wife in Gokula, and all those events leading to his coming to Mathura. They spoke of the killing of the demon Putana, as well as the killing of Trinavarta, who came as a whirlwind. They also recalled the deliverance of the two twin brothers from within the Yamala Arjuna trees. The citizens of Mathura spoke amongst themselves. Shankashura, Keshi, Danakasura, and many other demons were killed by Krishna and Balaram in Vrindavan. Krishna also saved all the coward men of Vrindavan from devastating fire. He chastised the Kaliya snake in the water of Jamuna, and he curbed the false pride of the heavenly king Indra. Krishna held up the great Govardhan hill in one hand for 7 continuous days, and saved all the people of Gokula from incessant rain, hurricane, and windstorm. They also began to remember other enlivening activities. The damsels of Vrindavan were so pleased by seeing Krishna's beauty and participating in his activities that they forgot the purpose of material existence. By seeing and thinking of Krishna, they forgot all sorts of material fatigue. So this is a truth we can learn from the gopis here. By meditating upon Krishna, meditating upon Krishna's pastimes, we can come to the point of seeing Krishna's beauty and participating in this activity and forgetting the fatigue of material existence. And it really is a material fatigue. It is a fatigue. It's exhausting. It really is. Because the more we engage in the fruitive activities, we take shelter of the fruitive activities, the more fatigue we experience with the outcome of materialism. Whether we get it or whether we don't get it, either way it's unsatisfying to the living entity. There are people who have so much material opulence and are so unhappy. They're burdened by this fatigue of material existence, or the fact that maybe you have it and then whether it's beauty and fame, and then time goes by and your beauty of your body fades and falls apart, and what people remember of you as a star on the street, oh, this person was a movie actor or something, and they were really amazing. Or I don't know who this person is, but I guess he was a movie star. So, the beauty and fame and the things of material existence they come and go. And the pleasure of our relationship with Krishna, that is eternal. That is eternal, and it's never fatiguing. It's ever growing, ever pleasing. The Mathura citizens discussed the dynasty of Yadus, saying that because of Krishna's appearance in this dynasty, the Yadus would remain the most celebrated family in the whole universe. While they were thus talking about the activities of Krishna and Balaram, they heard the vibrations of different bands announcing the wrestling match. Now the plot thickens. The famous wrestler Chanura then began to talk with Krishna and Balaram. "My dear Krishna and Balaram," he said, "we have heard about your past activities. You are great heroes, and therefore the king has called you. We have heard that your arms are very strong. The king and all the people present here desire to see a display of your wrestling abilities. A citizen should be obedient and please the mind of the ruling king. Acting in that way, the citizen attains all kinds of good fortune. One who does not care to act obediently is made unhappy because of the king's anger. You are coward boys, and we have heard that while tending your cows in the forest, you enjoyed wrestling with each other. We wish, therefore, for you to join with us in wrestling so that all the people present here, along with the king, will be pleased." Krishna immediately understood the purpose of Chanura's statements, and he prepared to wrestle with him. But according to the time and circumstances, he spoke as follows. "You are the subject of the king of Bhoja, and you live in the jungle. We are also indirectly his subjects, and we try to please him as far as possible. This offer of wrestling is a great favor of his, but the fact is that we are simply boys. We sometimes play in the forest of Vrindavan with our friends who are our own age. We think that to combat persons of equal age and strength is good for us, but to fight great wrestlers like you would not be good for the audience. It would contradict their religious principles." Krishna and thus indicated that the celebrated strong wrestlers should not challenge Krishna and Balaram to fight. In reply to this, Chanura said, "My dear Krishna, we can understand that you are neither a child nor a young man. You are transcendental to everyone, as is your big brother Balaram. You have already killed the elephant Kuvalayapita, who is capable of fighting and defeating other elephants. You have killed him in a wonderful way because of your strength. It behooves you to compete with the stronger wrestlers amongst us. I therefore wish to wrestle with you, and your elder brother Balaram will wrestle with Mushtika." Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 42nd chapter of Krishna, the killing of the elephant Kuvalayapita. So, continuing on. Chapter 43, the killing of Kamsa. Here it comes. After Kamsa's wrestlers expressed their determination, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the killer of Madhu, confronted Chanura, and Lord Balaram, the son of Rohini, confronted Mushtika. Krishna and Chanura, and then Balaram and Mushtika locked themselves hand to hand, leg to leg, and each began to press against the other with a view to come out victorious. They joined palm to palm, calf to calf, head to head, chest to chest, and began to strike each other. The fighting increased as they pushed one another from one place to another. One captured another and threw him down on the ground, and another rushed from the back to the front of another and tried to overcome him with the hold. The fighting increased step by step. There was picking up, the dragging and pushing, and then the legs and hands were locked together. All the arts of wrestling were perfectly exhibited by the parties as each tried his best to defeat his opponent. But the audience in the wrestling arena was not very satisfied because the combatants did not appear to be equally matched. They considered Krishna and Balaram to be mere boys before the wrestlers Chanura and Mushtika, who were huge men as solid as stone. Being compassionate and favoring Krishna and Balaram, many members of the audience began to talk as follows. "Dear friends, there is danger here," another said. "Even in front of the king, this wrestling is going on between incompatible sides." The audience had lost their sense of enjoyment. They could not encourage the fighting between the strong and the weak. Mushtika and Chanura are just like thunderbolts, as strong as great mountains, and Krishna and Balaram are two delicate boys of very tender age. The principle of justice has already left this assembly, Persons who are aware of the civilized principles of justice will not remain to watch this unfair match. Those taking part in this wrestling match are not very much enlightened. Therefore, whether they speak or remain silent, they are being subjected to the reactions of sinful activities. But my dear friends, another in the assembly spoke out, just look at the face of Krishna. There are drops of perspiration on his face from chasing his enemy. His face appears like the lotus flower with drops of water. Do you see how the face of Lord Balaram has turned especially beautiful? There is a reddish hue on his white face because he is engaged in a strong wrestling match with Nishtika. Ladies in the assembly also addressed one another. Dear friends, just imagine how fortunate the land of Vrindavan is, where the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself is present, always decorated with flower garlands and engaged in tending cows along with his brother, Lord Balaram. He is always accompanied by his coward boyfriends, and he plays his transcendental flute. The residents of Vrindavan are fortunate to be able to constantly see the lotus feet of Krishna and Balaram, which are worshipped by great demigods like Lord Shiva and Brahma and the goddess of fortune. We cannot estimate how many pious activities were executed by the damsels of Rajabhumi so that they were able to enjoy the Supreme Personality of Godhead and look on the unparalleled beauty of his transcendental body. The beauty of the Lord is beyond compare. No one is higher or equal to him in beauty of complexion or bodily luster. Krishna and Balaram are the reservoir of all kinds of opulence, namely wealth, strength, beauty, fame, knowledge, and renunciation. So Krishna and Balaram are complete in all these things. Sometimes, people different living entities come into the world with different karmic reactions where they have maybe a lot of wealth, like Elon Musk or, Bill Gates or whatever. Or they may, have a lot of wealth, but they're not very beautiful. So Bill Gates is kind of ugly, so he's not at all beautiful. There are some people who are very strong. They're very strong, powerful, have a lot of strength, but maybe they're not beautiful, or maybe they don't have wealth. Some people are very knowledgeable, but they don't have, so he may have a couple of these things, but nothing incomplete. So Krishna and Balaram are complete in all opulences. Wealth, strength, beauty, fame, knowledge, and renunciation. The gopis are so fortunate that they can see and think of Krishna 24 hours a day, beginning from their milking the cows or husking the paddy or churning the butter in the morning. While engaged in cleaning their houses and washing their floors, they are always absorbed in the thought of Krishna. The gopis give a perfect example of how one can execute Krishna consciousness, even if he is in different types of material engagement. By constantly being absorbed in the thought of Krishna, one cannot be affected by the contamination of material activities. The gopis are therefore perfectly in trance, samadhi, the highest perfectional stage of mystic power. So samadhi is complete absorption, Krishna consciousness, complete absorption in Krishna. In the Bhagavad Gita, and when we say absorption, that's absorption I'm flipping the word from my mind, but complete in thought, in deed, in action. Your senses are completely absorbed. So it doesn't mean that you are merging with Krishna, but you are one in will completely. Your will is dovetailed with Krishna. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is confirmed that one who is constantly thinking of Krishna is a first-class yogi among all kinds of yogis. My dear friends, one lady told another, we must accept the gopis' activities to be the highest form of piety. Otherwise, how could they have achieved the opportunity of seeing Krishna both morning and evening when he goes to the pasturing ground with his cows and cowherd boyfriends and returns in the evening? They frequently see him playing on his flute and smiling very, very brilliantly. When Lord Krishna, the supersoul of every living being, understood that the ladies in the assembly were anxious for him, he decided not to continue wrestling, but to kill the wrestlers immediately. So Krishna, it's not like Krishna really ever has a hard time trying to kill demons, but he enjoys a good fight. He enjoys to put himself in a situation, whether it's as Lord Nrsingadev, kind of batting around you're chasing around Hiranyakashipu and, giving them the idea that he's somehow got the upper edge on him, or whether it's Hiranyaksha and the boar incarnation of Krishna. They like to pretend, he likes to pretend that they're really struggling in a battle, but Krishna is just kind of enjoying it. And here, and Kaliya snake, there's all these examples, of Krishna fighting demons, or where but then he notices, oh, now my fun is over, because I'm looking at my dear devotees and they're anxious, they're afraid that I'm in, or the demigods are afraid that I'm going to be killed or whatever, so I'll just, end this. The parents of Krishna and Balaram, namely Nanda Maharaj, Yashoda, Vasudeva, and Devaki, were also very anxious because they did not know the unlimited strength of their children. Lord Balaram was fighting with the wrestler Mishtika in the same way that Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was fighting and wrestling with Chanura. Lord Krishna appeared to be cruel to Chanura, and he immediately struck him thrice with his fist. The great wrestler was jolted to the astonishment of the audience. Like, whoa, and suddenly, they're like, oh, Krishna and Balaram they're so delicate children. And so, but actually they're not. Chanura then took his last chance and attacked Krishna, just as one hawk swoops upon another. Folding his two hands, he began to strike the chest of Krishna, but Lord Krishna was not even slightly disturbed, no more than an elephant that is hit by a flower garland. Krishna quickly caught the two hands of Chanura and began to wheel him around, and simply by this centrifugal action, Chanura lost his life. Krishna then threw him to the ground. Chanura fell just like the flag of Indra, and all his nicely decorated ornaments were scattered hither and thither. Mushtika also struck Balaram, and Balaram returned the stroke with great force. Mushtika began to tremble, and blood and vomit flowed from his mouth. Distressed, he gave up his vital force and fell down, just as a tree falls down in a hurricane. After the two wrestlers were killed, a wrestler named Kuta came forward. Lord Balaram immediately caught him in his left hand and killed him nonchalantly. Just like nonchalantly. It's just like, whoop, swatting a fly. Another wrestler of the name Shala came forward, and Krishna immediately kicked him and cracked his head. Another wrestler named Toshala came forward and was killed in the same way. Thus all the great wrestlers were killed by Krishna and Balaram, and the remaining wrestlers began to flee from the assembly out of fear for their lives. So the smart ones are like, okay, time to get out of here. All the coward boyfriends of Krishna and Balaram approached them and congratulated them with great pleasure. While drums beat and they talked of the victory, the leg bells on the feet of Krishna and Balaram tinkled. All the people gathered there began to clap in great ecstasy, and no one could estimate the bounds of their pleasure. The Brahmanas present began to praise Krishna and Balaram ecstatically. Only Kamsa was morose. He neither clapped nor offered benediction to Krishna. Kamsa resented the drums being beaten for Krishna's victory, and he was very sorry that the wrestlers had been killed and had fled the assembly. He therefore immediately ordered the drum playing to stop and began to address his friends as follows. So, typical demon, envious of Krishna, and people who are envious of God, they have no vision. They know no vision, and they're just envious. They don't like the idea of people worshiping God. They want people to respect them and respect their opinion, and so they're very similar this way. They're very sorry about this, and they're also resentful of the situation, and so they're very demoniac. I order that these two sons of Vasudeva be immediately driven out of Mathura. The coward boys who have come with them should be plundered and all their riches taken away. Nanda Maharaj should immediately be arrested and killed for his cunning behavior, and the rascal Vasudeva should also be killed without delay. Also my father Agashena, who has always supported my enemies against my will, should be killed. When Kamsa spoke in this way, he just basically went and said he was going to kill all of Krishna's dear devotees, so that didn't go over well. Lord Krishna became very angry with him, and within a second he jumped over the high guards of King Kamsa. Kamsa was prepared for Krishna's attack, for he knew from the beginning that he was to be the cause of his death. He immediately unsheathed his sword and prepared to answer the challenge of Krishna with sword and shield. As Kamsa wielded his sword up and down, hither and thither, Lord Krishna, the Supreme Lord, caught hold of him with great force. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the shelter of the complete creation, and from whose lotus navel the whole creation is manifested, immediately knocked the crown from the head of Kamsa. Book, like you're no longer king, and grabbed his long hair in his hand. He then dragged Kamsa from his seat to the wrestling dais and threw him down. Then Krishna at once straddled his chest and began to strike him over and over again. Simply from the strokes of his fist, Kamsa lost his vital force. In order to assure his parents that Kamsa was dead, Lord Krishna dragged him just as a lion drags an elephant after killing it. On sight of this, there was a great roaring sound from all sides, as some spectators expressed their jubilation, and others cried in lamentation. From the day Kamsa heard that he would be killed by the eighth son of Devaki, he was always thinking of Krishna 24 hours a day without any stoppage, even while he was eating, while he was walking, while he was breathing, and naturally he got the blessing of liberation. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated, Sadatad Baba Bhavitaha. A person gets his next life according to the thoughts in which he is always absorbed. Kamsa was thinking of Krishna with his wheel, which means Narayan, who holds a wheel, conch shell, lotus flower, and club. According to the opinions of authorities, Kamsa attained Swarupa Mukti after death. That is to say that he attained the same form of Narayan, Vishnu. On the Vaikuntha planets, all the inhabitants have the same bodily features as Narayan. After his death, Kamsa attained liberation and was promoted to Vaikuntha Loka. From this instance, we can understand that a person who thinks of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as an enemy gets liberation and a place in the Vaikuntha planet. So what to speak of the pure devotees who are always absorbed in the favorable thoughts of Krishna? So it's a very, very encouraging. Even an enemy who is killed by Krishna gets liberation and is placed in the impersonal Brahmajyoti. Since the Supreme Personality of Godhead is all good, simply thinking of him either as an enemy or as a friend gets liberation, but the liberation of the devotee and the liberation of the enemy are not the same. And the enemy generally gets the liberation of Sahuja, and sometimes he gets Swarupa liberation. Kamsa had 8 brothers headed by Kanka. All of them were younger than he. And when they learned that their elder brother had been killed, they combined together and rushed towards Krishna in great anger to kill him. Kamsa and his brothers were all Krishna's maternal uncles. They were all brothers of Krishna's mother, Devaki. When Krishna killed Kamsa, he killed his maternal uncle, which is against the regulation of Vedic injunction. Although Krishna is independent of all Vedic injunction, he violates the Vedic injunction only in inevitable cases. Kamsa could not be killed by anyone but Krishna. Therefore, Krishna was obliged to kill him. As far as Kamsa's 8 brothers were concerned, Balaram took charge of killing them. Balaram's mother, Rohini, although the wife of Vasudeva, was not the sister of Kamsa, therefore Balaram took charge of killing all of Kamsa's 8 brothers. He immediately took up an available weapon, most probably the elephant's tusk, which he carried, and killed the 8 brothers one after another, just as a lion kills a flock of deer. Krishna and Balaram thus verify the statement that the Supreme Personality of Godhead appears to give protection to the pious and to kill the impious demons who are always enemies of the demigods. The demigods from the higher planetary systems began to shower flowers, congratulating Krishna and Balaram. Among the demigods were powerful personalities like Lord Brahma and Shiva, and all joined together in showing their jubilation over Kamsa's death. Yeah, because as usual, demons go. They are always subjugating the demigods. And the demigods are always happy to have these demoniac forces off the earth. There was beating of drums and showering flowers from the heavenly planets, and the wives of the demigods began to dance in ecstasy. The wives of Kamsa and his 8 brothers became aggrieved on account of their husbands' sudden deaths, and all of them were striking their foreheads and shedding torrents of tears. They were crying very loudly and embracing the bodies of their husbands. So as they were saying, the wives of the Kamsa and the wives of his 8 brothers, because they already killed the brothers. They were crying very loudly, embracing the bodies of their husbands. The wives of Kamsa and his brothers began to lament, addressing the dead bodies, "Our dear husbands, you are so kind and the protectors of your dependents. Now, after your death, we are also dead, along with your home and children. We are no longer looking very auspicious. On account of your death, the auspicious functions which were to take place, such as the sacrifice of the bow, have all been spoiled. Our dear husbands, you treated persons ill who were faultless, and as a result, you have been killed. This is inevitable because a person who torments an innocent person must be punished by the laws of nature. We know that Lord Krishna," so that's a really important point, that actually karma comes around. So people are responsible for their actions. "We know that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the Supreme Master of everything and the Supreme Enjoyer of everything, and therefore anyone who neglects his authority can never be happy. And ultimately, as you have, he meets death." So this, once again, we made this point that those people that are neglecting the authority of Krishna, neglecting the authority of God, their relationship with Krishna, or their relationship with God, or just because they deny does not mean that they are not facing God at the time of their death. The time of their death is like Krishna comes to them as cruel death. So everything that they've propped up in their life and they've believed in themselves and the things that they think they have are taken away. Their life, their relationships, everything. And they have no knowledge. They think that they were God. So therefore, it's a horrible and terrifying experience, this relationship with Krishna. But the same, as I said, the lioness who carries the baby lion, the cub in his mouth, the devotee, Krishna comes and takes the devotee back to Goloka Vrindavan, back to Vaikuntha planets. That same lion to the non-devotee is like the deer. The teeth that carry the baby will crush the deer. Since Krishna was kind and affectionate to his aunts, he began to give them solace as far as was possible. The ritualistic ceremonies after death were then conducted under the personal supervision of Krishna, because he happened to be the nephew of all the dead princes. After finishing this business, Krishna and Balaram immediately released their father and mother, Vasudeva and Devaki, who had been imprisoned by Kamsa. Krishna and Balaram fell at their parents' feet and offered them prayers. Yay! Happy ending. Vasudeva and Devaki had suffered so much trouble because Krishna was their son. It was because of Krishna that Kamsa was always giving them trouble. Devaki and Vasudeva were fully conscious of Krishna's exalted position as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, although Krishna touched their feet and offered obeisances and prayers to them, they did not embrace him, but simply stood up to hear the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although Krishna was born as their son, Vasudeva and Devaki were always conscious of his position. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 43rd chapter of Krishna, the killing of Kamsa. Wonderful. This is a great story, as usual. And so we're going to go into the next story next time, in which Krishna recovers the son of his teacher and what happens after this wrestling match. Stories continue. We're only not even halfway through the Krishna book, so although the childhood pastimes of Krishna have passed, are done, there are more pastimes of Krishna to come. So thank you very much. Let's chant a little bit, and we'll see you next time. Haribo Nitai Go, Nitai Go Haribo, Hari Bol. That's all for today's Krishna stories. We'll see you next time. Namaste.